Well done.
Thank you very much, Patrick, for that wonderful session. Now, I am going to introduce our next session, which will be led by the wonderful Shonali, which is why I'm here alone right now. Shonali will be moderating the next panel session on the role of just transition in climate action, together with our wonderful event sponsors, Good Energy and Motability Operations. The panel will explore how businesses can lead in creating a sustainable, fair, and inclusive future. And it's titled Catalyzing Change, the Role of Just Transition in Climate Action. Shonali, over to you.
This is my first time in the chair, and I've been told about this chair. Somebody backstage said that, like Graham Norton, if I say something really wrong as host, they'll get rid of me. So I'm gonna try and face this way as much as possible. But I would love to introduce our amazing panelists here today, who have some fantastic stories and examples for you. So I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, because everything's always best said in their own words. Could I start with you, Nigel, just to do a brief introduction to yourself, your company, why you're here on this panel?
Sure. So I'm Nigel Pocklington. I'm the Chief Executive of Good Energy, which, if you're just a consumer of an energy supply, you may not have heard of. We're one of the smaller players, but we are the UK's micro-generation champion. We've been around about 25 years, and we exist to champion a much more decentralized approach to the way the UK generates electricity, and a much more sustainable approach. So whilst I don't speak for that many of the UK's energy consumers, I do speak for a large number of the people who are generating through their rooftop, who are running small-scale or community-led generation projects, and we are usually regarded as the greenest energy company in the country.
Great, thank you. Mahnoor.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mahnoor Kamran. I am a youth board member at Good Energy. But today, when I'll be speaking at the session, I'll be pulling out all my hats. So my primary work is within climate justice spaces. My background, so you'll hear my accent and you'll think, this doesn't sound like somebody from the UK. And that's because I was born in Pakistan, I grew up in the Middle East, and then I moved here a couple of years ago. And that basically informs my climate justice advocacy, because I saw people in Karachi, the poorest people, the people living in slums, being affected during monsoon season, whilst I was in international schools with the kids of big oil giants, and then coming to the UK and realizing that it is people from the global majority, people of color, that are most impacted by the climate crisis, both in the global south and in the global north. So I come into the energy space from that global justice and equality angle, and my work is primarily within policy. So I've worked with the UK Department for Education and advised them on their climate change and sustainability strategy, and then translated that into actual work with Students Organizing for Sustainability, which is a student-led climate education charity, and I'm currently a campaign coordinator with them. And apart from that, I have worked with Ofgem and Sustainability First, which is a think tank all around the just transition, net zero, but the social implications of that. And I was the youngest person there, so really leading the youth dialogue when it comes to policy making. And apart from that, I will be starting at Oxford in 3 weeks' time. Thank you. And yeah, I'll be studying geography, looking at intertwining climate justice within academia. And I'm a freelance consultant, speaker, and facilitator. So
Amazing.
I'll be bringing the climate justice perspective.
Mahnoor, not only do I love portfolio careers, I just love that you're living the values and you feel so passionate about it, as we all do here today. Thank you so much for being on the panel. James?
No, thank you.
All right, shall I move on?
Yeah.
All right, no.
I'm James. I work for Motability Operations. We exist to provide our customers with personal mobility in a really fast-changing world. I'm responsible for our wheelchair accessible vehicle scheme and also our adaptation business. Our business is dealing with the challenges of electrification, vehicle electrification, and the inequity of affordability of infrastructure access but also some really challenging engineering issues that stand in the way of converting vehicles for customers.
Great, thank you. Thank you. And Molly?
Hi, I'm Molly. I also work at Motability Operations. I work with our sponsorships and ambassadors, but I'm also a Motability Scheme customer, and I have been for more than 2 decades, if you'd believe it. So I have great experience, and it's been wonderful to bring that lived experience of the scheme and disability into my role to help with what we're doing. And yeah, the biggest thing for us at the moment is that electric transition and just making sure that we are finding the right solutions for all of our customers. All of our customers will have unique situations, unique disabilities, and it's making sure that everyone has the right solution for them.
I love that. Thank you very much. Thank you. And this is really why the panel's been curated in this way, because we're so grateful to have Molly and Mahnoor here, who are both feeding in the social voice into the large organizations who are really trying to make climate change. And just while I've got that at the forefront of my mind, obviously this panel is called Making a Just Transition. Can we have the house lights up? I would really like to see how many of you know what just transition means, because that will dictate what I say next. Okay, so we've got about half of you that know, half of you don't know. For me, I just want to simplify it because I want to give airtime to the panel. It's really about how you bring the social into your climate action. So it's how you integrate the two. But these stories here are incredible because they're more than that. They're also about empowering the youth voice. So really, I want to talk about how you do it and examples. Can I start with Motability, about how you work together? Any examples of how that works?
Yeah, I guess a massive thing for me is working with our sponsorships and ambassadors. The whole reason we started working with them is getting those lived experiences and telling those stories as well, but helping us make sure that we're working with as many different variations of what our customers can look like to help inform what those decisions look like and what we're doing and how these changes are going to be impacting them. And as James mentioned, there's a really big challenge for us in how some of our vehicles are going to look when we start to look at electric vehicles, and it's a really, it's a big thing that we're thinking about at the moment because it's coming. There's no stopping it, but we want to make sure that no one's being left behind.
I think no one being left behind is really impactful. Sorry, James.
Absolutely, no, sorry. So talking about the engineering challenges, which are very real inhibitors to people getting access to electrified mobility. We have around 35,000 customers who use wheelchair-accessible vehicles. That involves cutting the back of the vehicle out and putting a ramp in so that the customer can get into the rear of the vehicle. If there's a battery in the floor of the vehicle, you can't get in. So one of the practical things we've done is to work with a design and engineering agency to create a prototype vehicle to showcase what's possible when looking at electric vehicles. So it's real intervention early in the transition to electric, to engage manufacturers, to engage engineering companies on providing solutions so we don't leave anybody behind.
That's great. I love that. And you wouldn't think of it really, that kind of engineering. You want to do the right thing, you want to go electrified, but you do also want to do the right thing, make it accessible to all, which is great. Could I ask about how you integrate lived experience into good energy?
Yeah, sure.
Do you want to go for it?
Yeah, 100%. So I've been with Good Energy for 3 years now, and the reason why I came within this space was because I found energy to be the underlying reason why so many of the fashion industry, so much of the food industry, water consumption is so unsustainable. It all had energy, underlyings under it. Wow, that was not the best choice of words. But I came into it because I saw people, mining in Pakistan, and then again coming to the UK, where people are now talking about net zero, but then that transition is happening off the back of people in the global south that are mining minerals. So I bring that justice dialogue within the energy supplier. And so I'm part of the youth board where we discuss all the policies and the energy mixes, and people and culture team, we look at it as an overarching. But apart from that, I've had specific dialogue with Good Energy regarding their climate justice policy, for example, that was used within the B Corp process. And I also have done consultancy with them specifically regarding an issue. And then on top of that, I represent them in speaking events. I think a couple of you guys are at Boardroom 2030 a couple of years ago, and I think I saw you during breakfast. So yeah, meeting like-minded people, but also with the work that I do with Ofgem, I bring in the good energy and the renewable energy perspective into it. So it's not only within the company, but also industry-wide.
Yes, it's interesting. In many ways, the energy side of the business is the easy bit. I mean, we've got measurement coming out of our ears around how much energy we're generating, how much we're selling, how much carbon dioxide we're avoiding. You feel sort of very comfortable on that ground. You then sort of think, okay, what are the social and environmental, social impacts, and how does this sit with social justice? And it's much harder to measure, and it's much harder to measure in the context of an energy crisis, which in the UK, for example, we're now entering the third winter of. So how do we deal with that apart from sort of resting on our original purpose, which is a good thing in this context? And I think that then flows into the policies and practices of the company, the way we deal with vulnerable customers. For example, we have a dedicated phone line that means you can get through in less than a minute if you're on a prepayment meter. Great. The way we offer flexible terms to people in debt. And I think that means we're operating one of the sort of most flexible supply businesses in the UK, but the underlying position is one of challenge because we can't let people off their debt. The company will go bust, or you're then saying to everybody else, you're just paying for people who can't or don't want to pay. So there are constant challenges, I think, in that area, which are harder to overcome and not as straightforward, frankly, as sitting here going, I'm Britain's greenest energy company, because of the fact that 100% of the electricity I supply is matched by renewables.
Yeah, because there is that social imperative, certainly here in the UK with the winter fuel payment crisis, but also globally. And I will come back to that, but I feel like there's a thread through everything that you're saying, whether it's about getting the lived experience into the company, getting the youth board perspective straight to the board and the CEO. How does that conversation work? Because I'm sure everyone in the audience would like a practical takeaway of how they can make it work in their organization. So how does it work? How do you get people to listen to those conversations?
I think a big thing for us at the moment, and one of the aspirations for us, especially when we're considering the B Corp process, is having parity across all levels of the business so that the business is reflective and representative of the UK as a whole from all areas of EDI. So making sure that the business is reflective helps to make sure that those conversations are then representative of the entire country, and then hopefully everyone is getting their voices heard by making that happen. So I think that plays a big part in it. So
it starts with our values. It starts with our mission. It starts at the top of the organisation. So we believe, and we've written it down, that we have to take the lead. We're the largest leasing company in Europe. If we don't take electrification, if we don't take decarbonisation of our fleet incredibly seriously, we can't expect anybody else to join us on that journey. We have a stated mission to transfer 800,000 customers into fully electric cars in line with the ZEV mandate, and we track that. So we create internal measurements, we have working committees, we have accountability for senior leaders in the business to ensure we're delivering against that stretching ambition.
Great, thank you.
I think, and you can attest to whether you think this is true or not really, Mano, but Good Energy's founding purpose is very clear. We're here to power a cleaner, greener world, and once you're very overt about that and say that to everybody who's a stakeholder in the company, be they the employees, the youth board, the shareholders, you're setting up a standard that you have to adhere to, but it all sort of flows from that overall sense of purpose. The other thing I'd say, which is sort of maybe provoke some thoughts in the room, if your reaction to sort of shareholders is to think, ooh, that sounds a bit like capitalism, actually I welcome the fact we're a public company. It brings very high levels of transparency and very high standards of governance and reporting on how we're doing on this. And I think that is very healthy in terms of sort of helping the organisation keep to the line. So being a PLC is a good thing, I think, for this.
Yeah, absolutely. Mahnoor, I want to come back to you on the globalization thing. I'm aware that there are a couple more questions I want to get out before then, because I'm loving the listening, I'm loving the values, because my next question was going to be naturally about resource. How do you allocate resource to make sure that those lived experience and voices are heard? But I guess if it comes from the values strategically, then you find the resource automatically. So I'm loving the values, I'm loving the listening. Mahnoor, I want to pick up on the global issue. This perspective, these are global issues that we're facing, right? It's quite easy for us to look at the UK perspective. How do you bring that into the conversation? And there's obviously your passion of the lived experience. And I'm 100% behind Mahnoor. I grew up in Hong Kong as an Indian woman. I'm like, we need to look outside the UK. There's bigger things happening out there. But please tell me how you bring that into it.
Yeah, I mean, I've been very fortunate to have lived abroad for the majority of my life. I think sometimes when we bring like people of color into conversations, we expect them to know all the answers. And I was, 16 when I joined. I've just turned 20. So it's understanding that just because I am a racialized person and that I lived in 4 countries doesn't mean that I have all the answers. I don't think anybody has all the answers. So that's like understanding that first of all. And then second of all, I am very fortunate to visit the countries that I grew up in very often. I'm off to Pakistan tomorrow.
We can't hold you down, Mahnoor. We can't.
So yeah, again, it's just like literally living there. 2022, I think a lot of you knew about the flooding that happened in Pakistan. The size of the UK was underwater, right, in Pakistan. I was there firsthand witnessing the flooding, witnessing how the people literally living a kilometer away had their homes washed out. And it is that lived experience and that conversation that I want to bring within the space here. But unfortunately, there isn't like a large-scale movement that's trying to facilitate this dialogue. It's like, it's either me in a policy space, and then I'm the only person of color, I'm the only immigrant there. So unfortunately, I don't think the industry, like the sustainability industry, has gotten to the point of this dialogue that is cross-border led. But unfortunately, I am the one person that does facilitate that dialogue. But again, it comes from lived experience, and it comes from the fact that I have very strong ties to people back home. And again, the role of social media. Like, I moved here when I was 15. I didn't know a lot of anything about climate justice. And now I'm able to talk to activists back in Pakistan, back in India, back in Dubai. And I think the social media has really facilitated that dialogue when it comes to getting conversations within the international.
Great. And it's always a two-way dialogue on social media. That's what's beautiful about it, is you can talk and you can listen as well. So I've heard some really great things about being fully representative, about starting with values-based, about globalization, about really listening and integrating listening quickly into, I love that 1-minute thing. I'm going to take that away. So I want to just wrap up the panel with, if you wanted the audience to have one key takeaway from your time here on the panel today, what would that be? I'm going to start with Nigel.
I think for us it is start with the purpose. Our company's changed hugely over the last couple of years. We used to own wind farms and solar parks. We now install generation and storage on people's homes, but don't do that. But the underlying thing that's been consistent, that everybody who works for us, everyone who's a customer is very clear on, is this commitment to powering a cleaner, greener world and decentralizing it, putting power into people's hands. And that has frankly been a thread from when Juliet, my predecessor and the company's founder, set the company up through to today, and that gives us the foundation to work with.
I love it. Thank you.
My takeaway would be a question and a thought that I want you to sit with. And the question is, are you willing to look beyond the national and into the international? Are you looking at the supply chains? Are you looking at labor practices? You know, when we talk about the Global South, we talk about it from a very suffering perspective or climate injustice perspective, which is valid. But what are you doing to reverse that injustice? How do you want to be represented in the history textbooks of the future?
Thank you.
I think we all need to consider that without accessibility, there can't be a just transition, and that everybody in this room, when they're making commercial purchasing decisions, individual decisions, needs to consider their allyship when it comes to accessibility of a green future. So if you're looking at products and services, and you have to consider accessibility as part of that product set and what's in front of you. We're right on the edge of the most incredible transformation, but if we don't consider that as part of it, inclusivity, we'll lock lots of people behind their doors.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think James has sort of touched perfectly there. We're witnessing one of the biggest transformations, and we all have a part to play in that. And we have an opportunity here, and I think throughout all the talks and the panels I've listened to over the last 2 days and this afternoon, it's all been about working together. We've got an opportunity to make this process and this transformation accessible to everyone. For me personally, my biggest thing is that being disabled and having a disability is the one minority group that anyone can become a part of at any time in their lives. It could happen in an instant, it could happen tomorrow, it could happen today, not to bring the mood down, but this is an opportunity to make this transition and this process fair for everyone.
I love that. Thank you. And thank you so much to our amazing panelists for sharing that information today. Really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.